Hi everyone, so we're going to move on from epithelial tissues to connective tissues. So some of the functions of connective tissue are they bind, support, protect, produce blood cells, store fat, and fill spaces. So when I say bind, I kind of mean they connect things together. So an example of this would be like a ligament. That is a type of connective tissue. These have good blood supply throughout the entire tissue, have an abundance of extracellular material called matrix. So that's going to be a word that we want to underline. So we have three major cell types for connective tissues. We have fibroblasts, and these secrete proteins that become fibers. So fibroblasts secrete proteins that become fibers. We have collagen fibers. So these are the different types of fibers that those fibroblasts are going to make. So collagen fibers are a white fiber, and they are just thick threads of collagen. They hold structures together. So our next one is elastic fibers, and these are yellow fibers. So these are composed of a protein called elastin and provide elasticity to parts that stretch. So a good example is our skin has some stretch to it, so you might find a lot of elastofibers there. And our last one are reticular fibers, and these are thin fibers of collagen. And these are a form of support network within our tissues. Okay, so macrophages or histiocytes is the second type of connective tissue. So clear foreign particles from tissues by phagocytosis. So if we don't remember what this term means, phagocytosis means eating. So these cells are eating a bigger molecule, and they're eating it within. So these are important for defense against infection. So we're going to see these types of cells in our white blood cells that help protect against this, infection. And our last type is our mast cells. And these release substances to prevent blood clotting. So heparin is one of these chemicals, and then another one is to promote inflammation. So that's histamine. So that's another type of chemical. So usually located near blood vessels for these ones, since they secrete things that help with blood and inflammation. So talking about different types of connective tissues, we have loose connective or areolar tissue. So that's going to be an important one. For these connective tissues, I really want you to focus on these labels here. So we can see that loose areolar tissue has elastic fiber in it, and it also has collagenous fibers in it. And these little cells that we can see on the side here, these would be those fibroblasts that are secreting that protein to make the fibers. So here's a microscope view, so we can see some of these fibers here and those fibroblasts. So adipose tissue, so an adipocyte is a fat cell or droplet. And these functions are to store energy, help with protection, and insulation. So adipocytes are kind of a clear tissue, and they have a very, very small nucleus that you can see here, and there's another one over here. So it looks pretty empty inside, but that is what our adipocyte is going to look like. And here's a microscope view of that one. Our next is reticular connective tissue. So you're going to find collagenous fibers here. And again, those fibroblasts, because those secrete the proteins that make those fibers. So this one looks a little weird, but you can see all these connections with the collagenous tissue, and we have our fibroblast right here. So our next is dense connective tissue. So this dense connective tissue is going to consist of tendons. So tendons connect muscle to bone. and also ligaments, and ligaments are going to attach bone to bones. So you can see here we have like a nice wavy pattern here. Those are made of collagenous fibers. And again, we can see those specific cells. Those are our fibroblasts here. So our dense connective tissue again are those tendons and ligaments, and we can see those nice wavy lines here that show our collagenous fibers. Our next is elastic tissue, elastic connective, and those are going to have collagenous fibers, elastic fibers, and again those fibroblasts that are creating both of those. So we can kind of see these aren't as wavy, but they kind of look more smooth-like, and we can see that those fibers are here, and we have our fibroblasts right there. So our next is going to be cartilage. So when you hear the word cartilage, you're going to think of a cell of that is called a chondrocyte. And these are found in small chambers called lacunae. So you're going to find your chondrocytes inside lacunae. And there are 3 types of cartilage that we're going to talk about: hyaline, elastic, and fibrocartilage. So hyaline cartilage, some of the things we want to look at, this outer line right here, circle, that is going to be our lacunae. And inside of that, right here, that is our chondrocyte. You're going to see a lot of matrix when it comes to cartilage as well. So all of this purple area right here, this is our matrix. So if we're looking at a real life microscope slide, you can see that this chamber right here, this is our lacunae. This whole thing right there is our chondrocyte. And then this darker purple that's around everything, that is our matrix there. So our next is elastic cartilage. So again, we have our lacunae with our chondrocyte inside and our matrix around everything. The biggest difference that you're going to see between elastic cartilage and hyaline cartilage is that usually you're only going to see one, where in hyaline cartilage you kind of see 2 chondrocytes within a lacunae. So you can see that we kind of only have 1 lacunae here with 1 chondrocyte inside. And our last one is fibrocartilage. So this fibrocartilage, you're going to see some collagenous fibers within the mixture within our matrix here, along with our lacunae and chondrocytes on the inside there. So this one looks a little bit more smooth, but you can see individuals here with our different cells here, okay? So there's one of our lacunae with our chondrocytes, and we have a lot more fibers within here as well. That's all the light pink that you see. So our next is bone. So bone is a type of connective tissue. So you're going to call a bone cell an osteocyte. And these bone cells are also found in chambers called lacunae. So you only have to remember one name for a chamber. So when we're looking at our bone tissue here, we have, it looks vastly different than any of our other cells here. So we're going to look at an osteon. So our osteon is this big circular type matrix that we see here. We have our central canal, which is actually a hole that runs through our bone, through our cells here. And then right here, this is our osteocyte inside of our lacunae. And one more thing I'm going to point out is you can see kind of like these little fibers right here. So these little fibers are called canicula, and those are going to be important for the strengthening of those bones. So if we take a deeper look here, we can see our osteocyte is this entire box right here, and it has our nucleus in the inside. So this is an actual picture. If we're going to label one of these, this entire thing right here is an osteon. We can see this little circle right here. That's going to be our osteocyte with our inside of our lacunae, and our central canal right in the middle. Our next connective tissue here is going to be blood. So there are many different components to blood, and we're going to talk about those. So this abbreviation here stands for red blood cells. So RBCs carry oxygen to cells. So O2 is oxygen. We have our white blood cells, WBCs, and those are used to fight off infections. We have platelets, and these are going to help clot blood. And finally, we have plasma, and this plasma contains different hormones, gases, enzymes, proteins. That's really where we're housing all the minerals that we find within our blood. Okay, so when we're looking at blood under the microscope, we're going to see a couple different things. So these little pink circles, these are going to be our red blood cells here. Our plasma is actually the matrix of our blood here. So you can see all the space in between each red blood cell, that is going to be our plasma. Our white blood cells are actually going to show up some purple right here. And then when you see like a little splatter on the screen, that is actually our platelets right there. So a fun fact about human blood cells is that you're actually not going to see a nucleus within these cells. So that's going to be important to remember when we are talking about human blood cells, because animal blood cells do have that nucleus in the center. So if we look under the microscope here, all these pink little circles, these would be our red blood cells. Our purple here, this is our white blood cells. And in this image, I don't actually see any platelets, but all the white around it, that is going to be our plasma. Okay, so that is where we are going to end for this video. If you have any questions, make sure you ask me, and make sure we are taking these notes with those guided notes or in your notebook, wherever you feel the most comfortable doing that. I'll see you soon.